going to be looking at a Ponzi scheme today. In fact, we're going to be interviewing an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Don't worry, she's not going to knock on your door. She stopped doing that a long time ago. A lot of people ask me, why do I bust Ponzi schemes and why do I stick my neck out so much? Well, you may not realize I was actually brought up in what I call a religious cult. I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I got kicked out of the organization at the age of 23 for having premarital sex. Apparently, you're not allowed to do that before you're married. Anyway, I managed to sit at the back of the Kingdom Hall and bawled my eyes out for 4 months, waiting for the elders to reinstate me so I could have my community back, my family back, and all my friends that I grew up with. It was a horrible time in my life. Kicked out of the organization at the age of 20 is being naughty, as per normal. But today I have the privilege. I was looking through TikTok, and the ex-Jehovah's Witness community is rampant at telling people how to survive after being involved in this horrible cult. And I come across a young lady, and her TikTok was just right on the money. And I sent her a message and said, I would love to interview her. Anyway, she's sitting in the background, and I'd like to introduce her. Name is
Shannon Dominguez.
And she is the author of a book called
CultLife, a memoir of growing up as a Jehovah's Witness.
Now, I'm not going to hide off the whole message, but I am actually going to now hit record because I forgot to record the podcast part of it. I told you to remind me. Hello, Shannon. Welcome. Nice to see you here.
Hey, Danny. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
That's right. Now, we try not to do this like a normal podcast because most people ramble on about your background and all that. So I just get straight into it. So I have a whole lot of cards here because I was actually quite nervous this morning about interviewing you for some reason. And I don't normally get nervous, believe it or not. So I'm trying to relax myself. And these questions are great. So I'm just shuffling my pack of cards and I pull out a random question and I'm going to ask you it. First question here.
Are you going to answer it too?
No, it's for you.
Just for me. Okay, got it.
Well, I can have a go. Oh, what superpower would you like to have?
What superpower? I mean, flying's really cool. I don't think anything beats flying, so I'll go with that one.
Flying? Easy peasy.
Yeah.
What, like Tinkerbell or airplane flying or bird flying?
I thought it was a superpower, so I imagine just myself flying wherever I wanted.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Superman flying.
I've had a dream multiple times, and this is a personal story I've never shared with anybody, but I used to have hands like that in my dreams that if I went like that, I would take off and fly like a bee. And I had that.
Little like dinosaur hands?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and it wasn't just once. I had it multiple times. So I thought, well, if I was ever going to fly, that I'd have to look like a silly wee dinosaur. Too much information?
I can't say it's unexpected from you.
Right, yeah. All right, question number 2. What was the best gift you have ever been given?
Ooh, the best gift. I mean, I would say probably handwritten cards with art from my kids. And, it's not often that my kids use their words to express their deep appreciation for everything that I do. But there are times that they write me cards and they're really sweet. So I would say those are my favorite.
Wow, that's a simple way of doing it, isn't it? Parents get brownie points. For my partner, I'm always trying to do things to get brownie points, but you can't save brownie points. But you can save cards that children write for their parents. So it's quite good. Maybe I should write a card to my partner. All right. Okay, here's an interesting question. These are random. The next question is, when are you the happiest?
When am I the heaviest?
Happiest. Heaviest.
Oh, happiest. I'm like the heaviest probably after Thanksgiving.
Oh, such a personal question. Yeah. That's just okay. I've got a noise for that one, I think. What have I got a noise for that one?
My happy, I would say, there you go.
Yeah.
So I recently got an e-bike and it's like a motor bike, and it goes about 25 miles an hour. Wow. And I've been using it to commute, and I am always happy when I'm on that. I'm also slightly terrified that I may die, which I think increases my level of happiness, but that's just my opinion.
Now, I did see you at one of your TikToks, because that's how we met, is you were out in the hiking. You got up to about 1,000 feet or somewhere in the wilderness, and you come up to a lake. Do you remember that one?
Yes, that was in Taos, New Mexico, and the hike was called Lake Williams. And so when I got up, it was about 11,000 feet in elevation. And when I got up to see the lake, in my mind, I had imagined just this huge lake, but it was like a puddle of water.
It was mirror though.
Very tiny.
It was like a mirror, wasn't it?
Like a mirror?
Yeah. Well, it had reflection. Sorry, it had reflection.
Yeah.
So you can get up
Yeah.
close with your camera and take a photo of it and put it down, and it looks bigger if you hold the camera down low. So that's probably why you saw the brochure and thought, wow, it's going to be a big lake, but it was just somebody who was maybe clever with the camera.
I never even saw a picture of it. I just completely imagined it in my head and thought, wow, this, Lake Williams has got to be just huge.
Yeah.
And then I got up there and realized that people who call bodies of water lakes in New Mexico, they just are much smaller because it's in the desert. So there's not a lot of water in general.
Yeah.
And here where I'm from, there's a ton. So when we say lake, we mean let's get on a boat and like go across a lake.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting experience.
Like Alaska, I mean, if you're that sort of wilderness. I'd love to go to Alaska. Have you traveled much?
I've never traveled outside of the country, but I've traveled some inside the country and definitely all up and down the East Coast. So from Florida to New York, I've taken my kids and myself, and we've discovered lots of places.
I was on a train. I went through America on Amtrak, and I got to the other side of the country, and I thought I'd go across to Niagara and have a look. And I was on a train, and I met this old guy and got chatting to him. He's a bit of a character. He's 75 years of age, and he introduced me to his partner. He was gay, and then he said to me, "This is the first time he's ever been outside of his state in his whole life." And because Kiwis travel, that's what we do. I've been to 35 countries. But to not be there, no, please do not stay inside America for your whole life. Come visit the down under countries and do some hiking. You'll love it. All right.
Yeah,
so what have we got? What's the most important lesson you've learned in the last year? Now, just a year, not not the last 8 years. All right. And there's a reason I said that.
The most important lesson I would say is probably not to be afraid of my own blind spots, but to be open and curious, even about my own shadow side or my own imperfections. It can be easy to want to gloss over those. And I've learned that there's a lot of benefit in sitting with them and being real with yourself about the things that make you feel uncomfortable.
We were brought up with the idea that we always should strive to be perfect in an imperfect world. So we were striving for the unattainable. I wonder if that has something to do with it. And guilt. But we'll get into all that. Do you feel comfortable, more relaxed now? Have I asked enough questions?
Yes, thank you.
Good. I'm going to ask one more now. What was the longest you've gone without sleep and why?
Definitely newborn babies and
ask a mum that question.
Yeah, there's no other time that I've ever gone out without sleep like I have raising two children that were very close together in age.
Yeah, normally if I ask a male that question, they normally involves alcohol and one hell of a good story. But a mum, yes, they've got the real genuine. Now we're going to show people your TikTok, but we might do that later on. Now you've wrote a book, and we were talking previously, and you
I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
Because I have not written a book.
You wrote a memoir.
I have decided that I am going to write a book.
Oh.
And I have finished a very tiny portion of it. And I decided to hop on and read it to the world. And people showed interest, and it's gained a lot of attention. But I'm not very far into it. I've just started writing a book. So if you want to follow along for the journey, you can find me on TikTok and keep updated. But I just wanted to make sure that my book is not available yet. Hopefully sometime next year, though.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, just real quickly before I would actually I think it might be a good time. I'm just going to share the screen with people so they can see your TikTok. Actually, you might talk about your TikTok. You can see this, can't you?
Yeah, I can see it. So, I mean, these are all my realist thoughts. Most of them are as realizations come upon me. Writing this memoir has required for me to go back through my story, and I've seen things from a different point of view, and I'm just sharing it, whether that's about birthdays or Halloween or what life after being a Jehovah's Witness is like, or what healing, like what trauma do we deal with as adults who grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses. I try to keep it really real and authentic, and I read all of my comments and messages, and I base a lot of my future material on that.
And you've got 1,200 followers, and you were skiting that you've only been on it for 1 month, and I've been on it since how long? 2019, and I've got 3,000 something. I'm too old.
Give me a few more years.
Yeah, I'm too old for TikTok. That's my problem. But I am streaming on Twitch, and what's the other thing I'm streaming on at the moment? Kick. Yeah, I just found that out last night, so I thought this would be one of my first videos that go onto those platforms, so we'll see what happens. All right, so do you want to read that memoir before we ask you the questions? Is that what it's called, a memoir?
Whatever time. Why don't you ask me a couple of questions, and then I'll read the memoir.
I'm doing this interview, not you. Now, the thing is that you've provided me the questions. Now, I'm meant to be providing the questions, but now you've fessed up that you've actually put some of your information into ChatGPT and then asked it for 20 questions, and I would have done exactly the same. So I'm going to take the ownership of these questions back now, like I created them. But ChatGPT is, I'm very dyslexic, and reading and writing is not my favorite thing to do in the world. So I love ChatGPT. So all the description of your video is all done with ChatGPT. It's brilliant. Okay, so what was your reaction? So I've given you a nickname, and it's not on the screen, but it's on the thumbnail. And I called you the Salvational Sentinel, which sounds very angelic, which always freaks the next Jehovah's Witness out. It says, what was your reaction when you first saw the video thumbnail title that had been created for you?
My first reaction was, what does sentinel mean? So I Googled it, and then I mean, that's very lofty. That's higher than I've ever aimed to be viewed. So thank you for that perspective.
ChatGPT. ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Thank you, ChatGPT, for viewing it that way.
I thought it was brilliant, though, wasn't it? I think it's a brilliant name. I think it has a punch to it.
It does. It does. I really like it. I like the meaning that it has. I just never, when I started writing a book and I started sharing more openly about growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, because I used to keep it very much hidden. Like my close friends knew, but it wasn't something that I talked about a lot. I didn't know what the reaction of the world would be when I started putting out this real and raw and authentic content about my story. So to see the content be perceived in that way is, I just feel really grateful, to be honest, because I wish that someone would have shared the information that I'm sharing. I wish someone would have been sharing that when I had first left. Someone just reassuring me that my life wasn't completely over, that there is life after being a Jehovah's Witness, and then giving me tips on how do I move forward with all of this baggage and weight and trauma.
I was trying to figure out why we don't be more out there. I was similar to yourself in a way. Well, actually, I don't know how long you've been speaking out, but it was my niece got kicked out of it. Her husband had an affair, and she filmed him to set up a camera and basically caught him in the act. And then they had a judicial committee. She got kicked out. He got to stay. And it was just like horrific. And then my brother is her father. He lives 10 doors down from where she lives, and he doesn't talk to her. You know, he just cut her right off. And then every now and again he drops off, he must have a weak moment, he drops off some crackers and cheese that they used to eat together on her doorstep, and then runs away. And she's got three children, I should know. But this thing, all my nephews and nieces, they were 20 years before I got to meet them, because I've been out of it for 30 years. And then I'm going, hi, I'm your uncle. And Uncle Danny's always a weird guy who wasn't in the religion. And now all of a sudden I'm like taking over the role of her father in a way with, you know, I'm that guy that she can speak to about anything. So it's hard to comprehend how that all works. Anyway, so I think I just wanted to read the meaning of the Salvation Center if the computer lets me. Let's see if it does. It might not. Or is it going to let me?
The Salvation Sentinel implies someone who is actively safeguarding and rescuing others from harm. In this case, rescuing individuals from the detrimental effects of the Jehovah's Witness cult. Sentinel refers to a vigilant guardian or protector, someone who keeps watch and acts as a first line of defense, Salvation points to the act of saving or delivering individuals from danger or distress. Therefore, the Salvation Sentinel represents Shannon Dominguez's role as a guardian, helping others find their path to safety and freedom from the Jehovah's Witness cult.
I tell you what, you might, I think that's brilliant. Now, the reason why I think that's brilliant is because you and I know something that a lot of people don't know, but a lot of people have died by suicide because they don't know how to process what has actually happened to us. And I think that's the real clutch of why we want to be out and we want to speak about it, because I think it's really important to people realize. I actually believe, without blowing my own trumpet, I'm actually a lifesaver for a lot of people, because I get them talking and they get those feelings out. And if you don't, it's we watched a video together. We did a bit of a preamble before we did this last week, and I showed Shannon a video of Fifth, which is a rapper who sings about his experience. And we watched it together. Well, I've seen it before, but Shannon hadn't. And that was really moving. But he's a brave guy. And if you haven't seen his videos and you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, it's actually kind of like a bit of a release to actually listen to other people sharing their experiences. Because I don't know Shannon from a bar of soap, except on TikTok. And then we got together last week and we had a hoot of it. We actually talked for over an hour. But we had so many similarities. We live on the other side of the world. This is ridiculous. But we're all brought up in the same cookie cutter. We've all had the same experience. We all got told the same lies. And now we have to live our life. It just goes on and on and on. Right, let's get into a question. So you love that name, I hope. We've got you a new name. What kind?
I do. I like it. You did well.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'll tell my mother, who doesn't speak to me. Anyway, I'm not going there. What kind of emotional toll did being part of the Jehovah's Witness organization take on you over the years? Is that after you left or while you're in it? These are ChatGPT questions. That's what I'm thinking.
These are ChatGPT questions, so I get to answer it however I want, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is I remember being in the Spanish-speaking congregation, and I was about 16 years old. And I have to look away when I tell these stories because that's how I process.
I'll keep looking at you though.
But so I remember being 16 and I was in the Kingdom Hall. I was in the Spanish-speaking congregation. We had a sister there, and she was in a very abusive situation. She had recently been sexually assaulted by the partner that she was with. She had 4 kids. She was looking at being a single mom. And I just remember her situation was so tragic. And I found myself, I was just crying in the bathroom. I was very sad, not because of that situation. In fact, I was telling myself, how dare I cry? I don't even have a situation like that. I have enough food. I have enough water. I live a pretty good life. Why do I feel so sad? And I felt so sad and so empty and so depressed so much. And I did not understand why. But now I can see that there were so many authentic parts of myself that I was being forced to put away or to not acknowledge or to quiet. And in my case, that results in depression. If I can't be a free, autonomous person who's allowed to express their own thoughts and creativity, depressed is how I feel. And so as a teenager, I dealt with a lot of depression. I didn't understand why, because I was doing all of the things that I was supposed to. I was preaching, I was reading the Bible. I even underlined and highlighted my watchtower and looked at the scriptures in advance. And I mean, I was in it to win it. So I just couldn't understand why I always felt so empty.
Wow. Yeah. So showing emotion when you theoretically were told to suppress it in a way, or because so you got upset because the lady was telling her experience on her behalf.
I kind of I may not have worded that well. What happened is I found myself in the bathroom crying at one of the Kingdom Halls, and I had no reason why. I just had this overwhelming sadness. And I remember thinking about that sister and thinking, this sister has just been sexually assaulted. She's going to have to be a single mom with 4 kids. Like, she has reason to cry. I don't. I never understood why I was so depressed until I left. And then I understood that the religious trauma that the Jehovah's Witnesses inflict on you by black and white thinking, fixed mentality. I mean, there's a number of things, and the abusive relationships that they tolerate within the organization. All of this environment made me feel depressed. And when I looked around myself, I saw a lot of other people that were depressed too. Some of them had reasons, and some of them were like me, just not understanding, why do I feel so empty inside? Now I don't feel empty. Now I feel full. And the only difference is that I'm not a Jehovah's Witness anymore.
A good point you made there, actually. I just remember being in a book study once, and there was 30 people in the book study group. The book study is when Jehovah's Witnesses used to meet in somebody's house, and they used to do what we call a Tuesday or a Thursday Bible study group. And somebody said to me, "You won't know this, Danny, but I think it was 23 people out of the 30 people were actually on some form of medication for depression." I thought that's amazing.
It will drive you insane trying to live up to their expectations.
Yeah. Now we've just got a message from someone in the chat room, and they've said, and I'm just going to get the computer to read that. If it works, hopefully it works. Here it goes.
It's so true that we all experience the same traumatic things, just in different places.
Yeah. I think, we get to show emotions, which is something quite nice to be able to do now, even to be able to speak freely, have your opinion without being restricted. I mean, sometimes I probably go over the line, some people say to me, and some of the things I say, but I said, I don't want to be judged anymore. I don't want to be held back. I don't want to be restricted on what I think or what I feel or what I do. I just want to be free and live my own life, because it is my life. It's a gift from God. So, hey, I skipped a question.
One of my favorite things is having intellectual freedom.
Yeah.
Like, I'm allowed to read what I want. Before, I felt so guilty if I read something that wasn't published by the Jehovah's Witnesses. It felt like it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But now I get to read whatever I want. I can read banned books. I can read books with opposing views. I'm not stifled in what I'm allowed to learn. And that's something that's really important to me.
Now, that's great. I missed a question, so I'll go back to number 2. The title implies that you are a guardian helping others find freedom from the Jehovah's Witness organization. How does it feel to be described that way?
I think that was the first question that you asked me.
No, actually,
right?
What was the toll on being part of Jehovah's Witness? I mean, we're probably going to find, which I have done these questions before, that they all merge into one thing, and we might repeat ourselves a bit. But if you can sort of think, like, if you're a guardian, from my perspective, you're looking after people. So a better question might actually be ChatGPT. Have you actually helped someone? How have you helped someone who might be going through what you're going through? Like, it's catching these people who just come out of the organization, because I noticed when I was kicked out of the organization, I'd see somebody I know that was either out, or I weren't sure whether they were back in again. So I couldn't walk up to them and say, "G'day, how you doing?" because they would, they might say, "Oh, I'm back in now," and I'd walk away feeling like shit. So it's trying to find these people that are out and haven't gone off the rails, so to speak. Does that answer any questions?
Well, I think it's important to remember that ChatGPT gave me that name, which I like. I'm very honored that, people may perceive me that way, but that is not what I set out to do. That was not my intention.
Yeah.
When I started writing a book, the first book that I decided to write is now my second memoir, and that's called This Ends Now. And that was inspired by my father's suicide. And what does it look like to start really breaking cycles, taking care of your mental health? So I'm in the mindset of writing this book, and I watched a documentary on Hulu called, I think it's Smiling Happy People. It's about the Duggars and their fundamentalists. And when I saw that documentary, I thought, wow, before I write this book, This Ends Now, I should really write a first book that's a memoir of what it was like to grow up a Jehovah's Witness. And when I decided to do that, people would ask me, "Do you think that's going to be difficult?" And I said, "No, that's just a life that I've lived a long time ago. Like, it's just a story I have to tell. It's really not that big of a deal." But as I've gotten into it and I've written the timeline and I've gone back and remembered different stories, it's really changed my perspective. And then once I, about a month ago, created a TikTok and an Instagram and started putting out content, I was overwhelmed at the amount of people who emailed me, found where I worked, emailed me through work emails, Instagram messages, TikTok messages, Facebook messages. They're sharing their stories, and a lot of them are just reaffirming, like, please keep sharing this type of content. This is what's really helpful. So
Okay.
if what I'm sharing and my own healing and my own sharing of my story and experiences can help others to not feel as alone, or can help them see that there is hope after you're disfellowshipped, it doesn't mean that your life is over.
Yeah.
I was told when I left, I was told you'll never make it. You'll never be successful. So
Wow.
if I can help people see that that's not true,
Yeah.
that's really important. That would be amazing if I can help people in that way.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example of that. My sister, 20 years of drug abuse, also died by suicide. She was 2 years older than me. She died in the age of 36. My stepfather died by suicide as well. He died at the age of 36. He died on the 3rd of December. She was on suicide watch, and she literally took her own life by hanging herself on the same day. And she, she'd literally tried to commit suicide multiple times. Drugs, overdose, driving a car into parked cars, racing stripes up her arm. I took her to the hospital once. She had like 47 stitches up one arm and 25 up the other. The most shocking stuff ever. And I believe she couldn't live up to the expectation that Jehovah's Witness organization put on her. But the point of saying that there was, when she finally died, my brother didn't want anything to do with her because she wasn't baptized as such. She was an unbaptized publisher. He just stayed away from it. But when she died, he decided to wave his flag at the finish line and started organizing all the funeral stuff. And I'd been really involved in her life. I'd helped bring up her children, by moving back home, even as a disfellowship person, the whole 9 yards. And he said to me one thing on the phone that just triggered me something wicked, and I'll never forget it. He said, "You'll be happier if you was a Jehovah's Witness." And I'd been out of it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years at the time. And I just remember ringing him up on the phone about 12 times in a row, to be exact, yelling down the phone saying, "You don't even know your brother. You're waving your flag on the finish line. And now you're trying to be the hero in the organization for organizing a funeral of someone that you didn't even know, It was just so, and I just, you think, oh my goodness. And then you realize, hold on a minute, what have I actually just been through? And my mum used to ring up like a week later after my sister passed away. And I'd say to my mum, even though I was just fellowship, my mum did ring me occasionally. And I'd say, we've got nothing to talk about now, have we, mum? Because it was all about my sister, what she'd done, it was all, our whole life rotated around this thing. And now mum and I don't have anything in common. My mum doesn't even know me. And it just goes on, and the cycle continues. All right, I'm getting away.
There's a lot of relationships that way, and a lot of time and experiences and memories with people that you could still have healthy, positive relationships with, even though you believe differently, but that's just simply not allowed.
I think this is the thing that I think we talked last time. We said that when you get kicked out of the organization, you're now thrown into a world where you thought everybody was going to be destroyed and wiped off the planet because the righteous were going to inherit the earth. And you're hoping that Armageddon's not going to come while you're on the other side, because you'll be destroyed of all the wicked people. But then all of a sudden you meet some really nice people, and they are truthful, and they are honest, and they are good people. And they just don't care about all this rubbish that we got gaslighted into thinking. And that was a real, the first time I met someone that I could trust was just like, well, yeah, there is nice people out here, because you get told there isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was disfellowshipped in May, and in December, Christmas was coming up, and I was waiting tables and trying to make ends meet on my own for the first time. And I remember one of the waitresses asking me what I was going to do for Christmas. And I said, I have no idea. I don't even know how it works. Like, when I start to think about it, the idea of giving my kids gifts is fine, but how will I afford a Christmas tree and lights and all the things that go along with celebrating Christmas? I don't even know what they are. And she said, well, I'm about to go get some Christmas stuff. Why don't you come with me and I'll show you the type of things that I get? So we went and got some Christmas items, and she showed me what she would normally get and asked me some questions. Would you want a white Christmas tree, or would you want multicolor? And I was just so overwhelmed. I had no idea. And when we pushed the shopping cart out to the car, she said, all of these decorations are for you, and I want you to take, whatever money you have left over and buy your kids Christmas presents. And it was just so kind, and I felt very supported in ways that the witnesses made me believe I would never be supported.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just got some messages in the chat room. I'm broadcasting on Twitch. I'm too old for Twitch. But anyway, somebody in there, I don't know, said, hello, what are you guys talking about? And then they've asked, are we both ex-Jehovah's Witnesses? And then we've got, whoa, they're listening to what we're saying. That's in sensitive AF. What's AF mean? AF?
As fuck.
Oh, oh, don't you swear. Jesus, hold
Are we
it.
allowed to say that?
break the record on that one. And also we've got new down fades. Love that point. Worldly wisdom is just wisdom. They love your point on that one. So keep the comments coming. We'll read them out. Now we did have something else that came into my brain, but I've forgotten all about it now. This is it because the question, because you went through a judicial committee, so you had three, can I say, dirty old men asking the most intimate questions. So when did you realize you needed to leave the organization for your own well-being? Because you didn't really leave, you got told to leave, disciplined. So
exactly.
Maybe ChatGPT didn't get that question quite right for us.
And a lot of people don't quite understand how I left and what the circumstances were. So I would love to break that down.
Boom. Let's do that.
I was in an abusive marriage for 8 years. I met with the elders hundreds of times throughout 8 years. You
mean the psychologist, the trained psychologist, the marriage counselor elders, or the people that just been given that role? You know what I mean? These guys giving you advice. Yeah.
Because when I was in the beginning of my marriage, I ended up kicking my ex-husband out, and I did all of this research, and I found words like gaslighting and mental abuse and psychological abuse. And I brought all of that evidence to the meeting that me and my then husband had with the elders. And I said, look, I should not be in this marriage. This is not good for my well-being. I would rather be dead than be in this marriage. And I now understand why, because I did this research and I found out these things, and they took my stack of papers and they moved it over to their side and they said, that is worldly knowledge. And they opened up the Bible and they said, we need to read what God says about this. And God says, what God has yoked together, may no man tear apart. And I remember being so upset, and I was probably about 21 years old. Yep. At this point. I'd been married since I was 18.
Oh, like all of them. Everyone's married at 18.
I know. And I just told them, like, if I end up killing myself because I am so unhappy in this marriage, I hope that you two have to live with that.
Wow.
And then I honestly, they didn't back down. I had to get back with my ex-husband. I literally felt like I had no other option or choice in this world. It felt like I just had to go back into that place where I would put myself into a catatonic state and just do what I was told. And I remember writing them I'm sorry notes and giving them to them at the meeting and just being like, sorry that I said what I said. I shouldn't have said that.
Unreal.
I'm going to try to be more submissive.
We've got a comment which is quite interesting because this is a random person I don't know. I'm going to see if I can get it read. 1 second. Come on, read, computer. Do it.
I studied with them for a couple of months, like 6-ish, so this is really insightful to learn. Never really into it though, but I kind of understand just a tiny bit of what you're talking about.
Wow. So there's somebody who I don't know.
So this to me is really important because being a Jehovah's Witness is like being in an abusive relationship, and they are very narcissistic at first. They will love bomb you and make you think you're so smart and you're so awesome and you're so cool and you're on the right track. And most humans like to feel good about themselves. And in the beginning, Jehovah's Witnesses make you feel really good. But there is so much religious trauma. Literally, I listened to this podcast on Spotify called Surviving Paradise. And they talk about how the design of the Jehovah's Witnesses is to erode away at your sense of self. So they chip away at your sense of self. They put you into catatonic like states during meetings where you're just inundated with boredom. And they try to reprogram how you think, how you act, what you're allowed to read, who you're allowed to talk to, until you are so isolated from the rest of the world that if you find yourself in a situation like me, where you're 26 years old and you're a stay-at-home mom and you have no education and you have no job experience and you try to leave and everyone tells you you'll never make it on your own. You'll never make enough money. You'll never be successful. You won't have Jehovah's blessing. That's terrifying. And it fills you full of fear that makes people want to stay inside of an organization that is causing them depression, anxiety. I mean, I felt you can feel like you're crazy when you're in it until you get out of it and you realize, oh wow, that's just how I react to religious trauma and abuse.
Now, there's a name for it. That's how silly it is. There's actually a name for the people that are in the religion who are too scared to leave because they won't make it. What are they called? PMOs or something, is it? But emotionally and
mentally out.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
That's wild.
I'll tell you a funny story about my mum. When I've been in it since, I was in it since about 2.5. So I've still got photos of me doing Christmas tree stuff. But they knocked on the door, left a pamphlet. And then, sure enough, they come back next week. So Mum saw them coming up the drive. So she thought, I'll duck down, I'll bend over and walk around so they can't see me, because that's how my mum used to think. And then they saw her through the window, as they do. And so she had to go to the door all bent over, telling them that she's heard it back. And they went, oh, you poor lady. And that was it. The rest was history, man. They managed to call back and call back. I do a lot of business networking, and I'm always teaching people how to build relationships with people. So it's the same deal as they call back every week, be as nice as pie, form a friendship, and then they show you, a paradise dream and give you hope. And everything's on hope and belief. And if you doubt it, then, you get told off for doubting it. And like you said, as soon as you started doubting it and asking some raw questions, they pulled out the Bible. And even the scriptures they would have shown you wouldn't always be in context. They're just random thoughts, really, or just to keep you on that straight and narrow path. Our viewer here.
And I think it's important for people to know that Jehovah's Witnesses are highly trained to prey on vulnerable people. I hate that terminology. When the Jehovah's Witnesses are out preaching, they analyze an entire household before they approach it.
Yeah.
And, are there kids in the yard? Maybe they're worried about the future. Do you ever wonder why God allows suffering? The questions and the way that we're trained is literally to identify and prey on vulnerable people, to bring them in on this false hope that unfortunately most Jehovah's Witnesses still believe in.
I got the perfect thing I was going to tell you before we did this. I was going to, I'm going to knock on your door, right? And you don't know me from a bar of soap. So just imagine, knock, 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 and you answer the door.
Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Yeah, we're just in the area, and we've got a lovely neighborhood here. I would, what did we used to say? I used to say to people, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and we're calling in the area today. And then you would interrupt me and say,
I'm not interested, but thank you.
Is it Jehovah's Witnesses you're not interested in, or is it religion in general? And what would you say?
I don't know, because I've never been on that side, so I feel kind of put on the spot. Religion in general?
Yeah, well, I can understand your viewpoint on that, because wouldn't you agree that religion is responsible for a lot of the mayhem in the world at the moment? And this is how we'd overcome, because if people go, I just shut the door on them. I mean, if you do that, if you go out door knocking and you knock on 100 doors and they all do the same thing, you come up with a way to overcome the obstacle. And the obstacle was...
They had a word for it. It was called conversation stoppers. And we were trained. If someone said, oh, sorry, I'm Muslim. Oh, I'm this, or oh, I'm
busy. I'm busy. What would you say if I was busy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we call back at a more appropriate time? No. Oh, so you're not interested, or you're busy?
Just say no.
You said something earlier on, actually. You said that it's helped you in the business world because, you reason with people. Like, I overcome obstacles now, and I think it probably is because I was brought up as a Jehovah's Witness, that whenever I have an obstacle in front of me, now it comes down to how much time and energy I want to put into it to overcome that obstacle. And and that's what I'm always weighing up before I start new tasks or new things. All right.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really important point, because when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was 26, no job experience, no education. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I felt really ashamed for a long time that I had ever believed such outlandish, ludicrous nonsense. And so I didn't want to tell people about it. And then I started to realize that I was good at some things. I was good at public speaking. I was good at organizing information. I was good at these things that I had done all my life as a Jehovah's Witness. So if you are or have been a witness and you're out there listening, there is a lot of training that can be applicable in the business world today. And I was able to leverage to provide a home outside of the witnesses for my children.
Well, interesting enough, I was a painter and a decorator. I think you said your ex-husband was something to do with panel beating or something to do. What was he? What did he do? Your ex-husband?
Oh, window washing.
Yes. And I've just started doing one day window cleaning a week for myself again, because that's something I used to do. Because painter and decorator, a builder was a bit harder because you'd be committed to work. But most of the jobs that the Jehovah's Witness people had were either carpet cleaning, window cleaning, painting and decorating. What other ones was there? There was,
House cleaning.
Oh yes. And we weren't
A
allowed to
lot
be a
of
doctor.
bank tellers.
What one?
We had a lot of bank tellers.
Oh, easy peasy. Yeah. We've got a question actually. Somebody asked. Also in Twitch, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, it would be nice to know. May I ask, what do you think the more senior members get out of it? Community. And that's the same with the Ponzi schemes for me. I know it seems like a basic question, but why do they? Well, my mum, the last conversation I had with my mum, she's 79 years of age. My mum actually tried to take me to court to get a protection order because she was afraid that she wasn't allowed to exercise her freedom of religion. Can you believe? Anyway, she finished up going to the doctor and saying that she wasn't in the right frame of mind to go to court. So my nephew come along, who isn't a Jehovah's Witness, long different story, but I remember going to the last conversation I had with my mum, and my mum said to me she can't leave it because she's been in it all her life. She's stuck in the religion, and it's the only thing she knows, and it's the only thing that keeps her going. So regardless that my mum doesn't even know me or what I do, but I think that's actually quite a good question. Is it 50% of people are in it for I love the Bible, I love God. The other people are in it because of the community, and there is a strong community in it. What about yourself? Any views on that, Shannon?
I mean, this is just from my perspective and my opinion, is I think that a lot of people use the religion to fill an emotional void. I think a lot of people have a deep desire to know and understand why we're here, and the witnesses do answer those questions. I think the community is a huge part of it. I have an aunt and uncle and a grandmother who are older and they're still in it. But it's also more, I see a lot of it's the only thing you know. It's literally the only thing you know. When I was in it, I sincerely believed that what I was being taught was the truth, and I could not imagine any other way. So if you're brought up from infancy, and I spent a lot of time wondering, am I dumb because I believed that? And I had to work with a counselor who helped me to see, when you're brought up from infancy, being taught, brainwashed, fed over and over by everyone in your home, everyone around you in the congregation, everyone you're allowed to be friends with, your entire community. It took my father dying by suicide for me to truly wake up.
Interesting. The guy that knocked on this person's door was a window cleaner, and they're from Toronto, Canada. Isn't that nice? Over here, I don't think they knock on doors anymore. Probably after COVID, they're trying different things. They have booths around the cart witnessing. Yeah, every Wednesday morning I work 2 days a week, and I drive down Papanuri Road. So after my mum claimed that she wasn't in the right frame of mind to go to court to get a video of mine removed where I was speaking my mind about my upbringing, my own life, which didn't happen, that she couldn't get anything removed. She was out doing cart witnessing. So every Wednesday I go to work and I look and I see my mum. And one morning I managed to get my phone out and film her. And I yelled out the window, "Hello, Mum!" you know, but, you know, I think one thing I would like to say about the suicide, because that's a major thing in your life and my life. And we talked about it before we did this. But when I was talking to other people, one thing that's helped me with it is to say the words that my sister died by suicide rather than the words they committed suicide. And every time I accidentally say my sister committed suicide, I pull myself up and I go, I want to say died by suicide, because suicide is a way of dying, just like they died by cancer, they died by suicide. And for anyone that's ever had anyone die by suicide, that is such a nicer way of saying it. And when you said that the first time I met you, I thought, did you pull me up on that once? Because I remember I did this video and somebody put in the comment section, don't say committed suicide because it's committed. It just sounds terrible. And ever since then, I've always stuck in my mind. So I don't know if that's anything people listening might find quite nice, but it's a lot more soothing to hear those words said like that. And obviously you agree with me. So that's really cool.
I just had a thought that I'd like to share. It's more about what we were talking about earlier, but I just looked at my background, and these are supposed to represent my children who are 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And for that, I do feel like I can be defined as the sentinel.
Yeah.
I am saving them from so much. Like sometimes I forget that, but they are the reason that I left. I remember looking at them and seeing them observe the way that their father was speaking to me and treating me. And it just hit me. And I thought, if I don't leave, they're going to think that this behavior is okay. They're going to think that this is normal. And they're going to grow up with the same type of trauma that I had. And now they are just the best kids. They get to enjoy their life. They get to
play with other kids. They get to join us. They get to play in a sports team if they want to. They get to go to school plays.
One in theater and one in gymnastics. So they get to discover who they are. They get to discover what their passions are and then go and pursue them with freedom and autonomy. And that's something that I mean, there was 99% of options available in life that I had no idea were available to me. There was only one option, and that was being a regular pioneer, moving up in the congregation and the organization as much as possible. That's the only thing that mattered. Nothing else did.
We boys had a bit more responsibility in the congregation. We got to do roving mics. That was and do the sound system. I mean, that was a privilege. And if you were, I think I did open in prayer once or something at the meeting, and that was a big thing. But I think you could do that if you were. I think you used to do it at the book study. I can't remember. Was it only ministerial servants and elders that could do prayer? I'd love to do one now. A point that you did bring up before. What was that?
I don't think so. I feel like any brother was allowed to say the prayer, but definitely not sisters.
Yeah.
Unless we wore a head covering.
Oh, yes.
And then would rarely be able to, say
and
prayer.
there was a reason for that. Like when you're doing, like when you were going to go out door knocking, you would actually meet together and sort of huddle together and have all the street maps worked out, or your not at home slip. So if anyone wasn't home, you'd write down the address, you'd write down the time, the day, and you'd make sure you'd give it to people who were doing witnessing on a different day. And then go back around the block. And then if they would do that 2 or 3 times, and if they didn't get that person at home, then they'd go to another level where they'd either slide some outdated Watch Chair or Wake magazines under their door, or we'd harass their letterbox, and we would make sure, because they might be a night shift worker, because we used to study the house and we'd find a common interest with the people that we were about to talk to. If they had a boat, you'd walk up there and pretend you love boats, oh, that's a nice boat, whatever it was. One thing you mentioned just before, which I don't want to lose the train of thought of, you said purpose. Now, when you're in the J-Dub thing, people used to say to me, I can't imagine living life without a purpose, because all the worldly people that were outside the organization don't have a purpose, or what I call now is hope. Now, you've got a purpose because you got your children. Have you got anything else? Like, I don't think I have a purpose now. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. But that was one of the real hooks that keep you in the religion, because you can't live life. Like I say to people now, I'm quite happy to die at the age of 80 if I'm that lucky. Oh, I know that, what about the afterlife or whatever? And I said, I don't care. I'm quite happy to die at 80. Okay. Whatever happens after that, I don't know. Don't care. Haven't researched it. Too busy. What about yourself?
Yeah, that's definitely the conclusion that I've come to. I think everyone needs to do their own soul searching. But for me personally, I feel very comfortable that there is so much that I don't know that I don't know.
Mhm.
And the afterlife is one of those things. And that's what I teach my kids. We're like, well, if we die, the cool thing is that we find out what happens. Will it be something? Will it be nothing?
Yeah.
So for me, I feel very grateful every day that I get to be alive. You will never hear me complaining about being old. You'll never hear me complaining about having wrinkles.
Happy
Because
birthday,
I
by the
think
way. It's,
Hmm?
it's birthday week, or was it birthday month there? You had your birthday last week.
Oh yeah, last Saturday was my birthday. I turned 35
Woo!
and I'm really lucky to still be alive. I haven't died by cancer. I haven't died by suicide. I haven't died in a car accident.
Yeah.
I don't have any major health problems. I feel very grateful to be alive. So for me, my purpose is being present in every moment.
Yeah.
So here I get to be with you. I get to have this interview.
Woo.
Later, I'll be with my children. Tomorrow, I'll be with clients. And in all of those different areas of life that I get to show up, my purpose is being present in those moments.
Now, you said with clients, so do you work with an organization, or are you talking about helping people going who are dealing with trauma of being ex-Jehovah's Witnesses? Is that something you're passionate about, or you're actively doing?
That is my professional, my job position. I'm a consultant with a firm called Building Beloved Communities,
All right.
and we focus on nonprofits. My two focus areas are fundraising and strategic planning. So I work with different clients across the US, different nonprofits on fundraising and strategic planning, and I love
Wow.
it. I
Wow.
I am really good at it. I've learned a lot.
It's
There's
like
not a lot of people who have the audacity to go and dive deep into the fundraising world with nonprofits. But having a Jehovah's Witness background actually makes me really good at that.
yeah. The our friend from Toronto said, I remember at the congregation meetings, they were all talking about how men are always the leaders and women always should follow. So
I mean, women are
yeah.
obviously inferior. We shouldn't pray. We shouldn't have privileges. We
Mm.
shouldn't really think. And we definitely shouldn't take action on anything that we may think unless we confront a man who can tell us whether what we're thinking is the correct way to think or not.
What are you thinking?
Thinking that's stupid AF.
It wasn't one of the questions. Gave you so the final push. Now, after you got disfellowshipped, this is a better question for number 5. After you got disfellowshipped, did you try to get back?
No,
Right. I did.
I haven't
Yeah.
finished, I haven't finished my disfellowshipping story.
Oh, let's go. That's right.
Okay, so I'm 26 years old and I'm studying the Bible with a friend that I've gone to high school with. So I've known her for 11 years. And she asked me a question, and I can't remember what the question was, but she asked me a question and I couldn't answer it. So I went to the elders and they gave me some bullshit answer. And it made
Really?
me realize,
That's not like them.
yeah,
Sorry.
I know, right?
Yeah. Whoa,
But
oh.
that was my first experience with that. And I thought, it was the first time that I woke up to realizing that if I was preaching to a stranger, I would give them that bullshit answer.
Mhm.
But because I was preaching to my friend, I'm like, I can't tell her that. We both know that that does not make sense. And so I had signed up to be an auxiliary pioneer to do 50 hours a month for 6 months. And I
Oh, what
pulled
did you
out.
do that for? Jesus Christ, lady.
I know, I know. Look, if
You're
I'm gonna do something,
big.
I'm gonna do it with
Yeah.
everything I have.
Boom.
And unfortunately, that's what I did with witnesses. I call it my career before my career.
Yeah.
But 3 months into it, I stopped preaching. My attendance was going really low, and I just kept having this gnawing question of, if this is God's true religion, why am I in such an abusive marriage? And when I describe an abusive marriage, I'm talking that the standard was, first of all, I was very young. I was preyed upon. We got married after 2 months. This
Oh
person
my
very,
goodness, all the same stuff, isn't it? I mean, every time I hear this, yep.
I know.
Mm,
And, one of the biggest things that I'm talking about now is marital rape. The expectation in our marriage was that I had sex with him every day. And if I needed to skip a day, that was fine. I could do it twice the next day. And I was allowed to have my periods off. So
yeah.
that's 8.5 years of a human from 18 years old to 26 years old that had to have sex with someone that they didn't want to have sex with
Yeah.
and believe that they were broken. Turns out you just like to have sex with people that you actually like and not people who are manipulating you. And that's so in this abusive marriage, I'm being put down, I'm being stifled, I'm not allowed to have a job. I see I see my children seeing the way that he's talking to us, and I finally decide to leave. And so I borrow money and I get my own apartment, and I'm frantically looking for a job. My children are 1.5 and 3 years old, which was one of the hardest things to do, was to put them in daycare. And I end up getting a job, and about 7 days
This
after
daycare story you're about to tell was horrific. But anyway, if you are going to tell that one, but
which one?
well, you put your kids in daycare. I mean, this was horrific when you told me this. I've heard this story before. I'm just actually sharing our broadcast in case you think I've been rude to a few ex-JAW communities. So we've got 10 people in the chat room at the moment. So if you've got any questions, feel free to ask us. And obviously, we would love to bring those into the question. But tell me about this horrific experience again, because I couldn't get over it at the time.
The daycare?
Yeah, well, you're leading up to that. I probably intercepted you a wee bit.
Okay. Yeah, the daycare happens a little bit later on. Like that's a few years into being out of the witnesses. We just had some bad daycare situations, which is why I didn't want to put my kids in daycare. But nonetheless, I'm working all these kinks out. It's about a week after I left my ex-husband, and the police knock on my door and tell me that my father had passed away. And I did not know how he had passed away. He was my best friend at that point in life. Those past 3 years that he was alive, we talked every single day. I talked to him on the phone the night before. I knew where he was mentally, but I also didn't have the training, education, or ability to be there for him in probably the ways that he needed. But nonetheless, I find out that he's died by suicide, and I am being pressured for the following weeks by the elders to get back with my ex-husband. And in my head, I think to myself, if I get back with my abusive ex-husband, I'm going to do what my dad did, and my children are going to feel how I feel right now. And that cannot happen. So I made an arrangement with someone that I waited tables with, and we had sex just so that I could commit adultery. I called the elders at 7:30 a.m. the next morning, and I said, I've committed adultery. I need a judicial committee formed. I was hysterical. I'd never been intimate with anyone else in my life before. So I was just like a broken down mess, grieving the suicide of my father, trying to not get pulled back into the abusive marriage that I had finally escaped. And I had 3 meetings with the elders. So there's 3 elders, it's a judicial committee. The first meeting sounds like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't disfellowship me. The second meeting sounded like, I'm not so sure about y'all. I kind of feel like y'all set up environments that allow abusive people to flourish. I don't feel like you provided the right help that my father needed that contributed to his death.
And this is 2 weeks after your father died, right?
Yeah, this is probably about a month after.
Okay.
It was 6 weeks after that I was officially disfellowshipped. So the first meeting I say, please, I'm sorry, don't disfellowship me. The second meeting I say, yeah, I'm not so sure. Things don't seem great here. And the third meeting I said, I'm so sorry for all the things I said in the last meeting. Please forgive me. Please don't disfellowship me. I really don't want to lose all of my friends and family. I'll be completely alone, and my father's not even here. Please don't take away from me what I have left.
Let me share a scripture with you. Let's see what they would have said. Let's see what the Bible says about you.
Yeah. And they said that they were going to pray to the Holy Spirit and decide whether I was repentant or not.
Oh my goodness.
And they decided that I was not repentant enough. And so they disfellowshipped me. And the night that that announcement was made is the night that I knew, and I have never looked back and I have never questioned then, that the Jehovah's Witnesses are not God's organization, because I do not believe that there is a loving God out there. Well, I don't really believe in God anymore, but at that point in my life, I did not believe that there could be a loving God out there who would take someone in my situation and do that to them. That's wrong, period. That's wrong. And I never looked at XJW stuff. I never looked at apostate stuff. I made my decisions based on my own life experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I've just been helping some Nigerians. This is quite funny, but some Nigerians have been scammed by a Nigerian, and they wanted me to help bust one of their scammers. And when I'm in the chat room, they often say, "God bless you." And every time I see somebody, I'm like a ball in a china shop. I look at it and I don't want to be blessed by God. I don't want anything to do with him anymore. I just don't care anymore. I'm not going to push I'm not going to push my beliefs on you. And I respect if you want to believe what you want to believe for whatever reason, because I know what that's like. But I just don't want that to be smeared over my life. It's like putting margarine back on the toast after you spend ages trying to scrape it all off. I don't want it. I just want to, I just want to live life. And if life is 80 years, if you're lucky, so be it. And I've lived, like I said to my brother that was on the phone trying to tell me that I'm going to be happier if I come back to the Jehovah's Witness organization. And I'm saying, you don't even know me. I mean, I've traveled 35 countries. I've had an amazing business. I've drive new cars. I've built a house in the country. I've done all these things. And you've carried on being a painter and a decorator, living in a little bungalow and dedicated your life to Jehovah. I said, you're an idiot, mate. I said, but you don't know any better. And then I was speaking to his ex-wife who told me that, remember that my brother's called Ricky. Remember that Ricky is a victim as well. And I had to restrain myself for letting loose on him because he doesn't know any better. And it's just, there's so many mixed emotions and how you should feel. I mean, the day that you discover that you can be a voice and you can actually do what you damn well like. And if some people want to criticize you, they have the problem. I mean, I remember I used to bowl around to my mother's place. I used to when I was allowed to, but I used to ring up my mum and say, hey, is it okay to come around? And she would say, oh, sister such and such is here. And you go, okay, I won't come around then. But now, if I'm not going around her place anymore, but I used to just turn up. And I used to think it's her religion, not mine. So she can go through the embarrassment of telling sister such and such that Danny's turned up, he's disfellowshipped, and he might want something. Or something, you know what I mean? I don't live the life, it's their religion. If they want to live by it, like you're in the supermarket and you bump into somebody and you're right in front of them and you think, I haven't seen you for 30 years and you're looking at me like I have a problem, and you're thinking, I don't even know if this person's in or out.
And that was a big game changer for me because I felt really ashamed every time that I would see a witness out in public. And one of my friends who also grew up a witness but had left before I left, so I took part in shunning her. She shared with me, you don't have to play by their rules. And now, anytime I see a witness out, I treat them just like I would any other human. I greet them with kindness. I show genuine personal interest. And if they want to bring in the awkward embarrassment of shunning me because I'm disfellowshipped, then they can do that. But that's not something that I'm going to partake in. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm something dirty or unclean or unholy and that I shouldn't be talking to someone like them. If they want to end the conversation, I will respect it, but I'm not going to preemptively treat myself as a disfellowship person.
Yeah, we've got another question in the chat box here. Well said. Have you ever done anything you really regret that you think now was an awful thing to do, but didn't at the time? Ooh, did you get that question?
Of course, that's the human experience. Who would answer no to that?
Yeah,
And I appreciate the question. I don't mean to come off too strong with that, but we've all done things before. I mean, I wouldn't have had, relations with that person that I was waiting tables with. I didn't want to be with that person. I didn't want to have relations with them, but I did that because I wanted to get out. I think all humans at some point in their life do something that they regret, and then hopefully we learn from it and evolve past it and put our knowledge to play by being wiser people.
One of my favorite sayings in business, there's a a multimillionaire guy, asked him to come along to my business networking, and he started up a business that failed, and I watched it, and I was wondering at the time, why is he doing this type of business? Because it's totally outside the norm. He used to make biscuits that were this big, and he used to have these big jars, and the biscuits used to all fit in the big jar. And when you went into a corner, a 7-Eleven for you, but a dairy for us in New Zealand, you could hardly get the cookies out of the jar, and it was an art. But he used to knock on the doors of these dairy owners and asked him if he could put his big jar on their counter. So he had prime real estate, and he made himself a multi-millionaire out of doing this. He went to 155 dairies in Christchurch and asked if they'd put his cookies on their counter, and I think it was 152 of them said yes. So then he decided to get into this business where you would put your phone number into a system, and it would ring you up every morning and give you a motivational message. And this guy put $1.5 million into this business, had 8 full-time staff manning it, and then he was trying to promote it and it wasn't working. Anyway, I invited him along to speak at one of my business meetings, and I said, tell me about Aristotle. And he pointed back at me and he said, you've got to have your failures. He says, because they are the compost for your next business opportunity or idea. And I always think, failures are a fantastic thing, because people go, oh, have you made mistakes? And I often say, well, I don't think I have. I just readjust things. I mean, do I have regrets? No. I mean, I might be interviewing somebody one day who's a scammer and go off on them. But then my friend goes, oh, you lost the plot. And I go, well, no, I didn't. I have freedom of expression. I got to tell them what I really was thinking. Why can't I do that? And I think that's a gift,
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, my worst mistakes are usually like social blunders when I say something stupid, or I don't pick up on a social cue or something like that. I've also made plenty of mistakes in my life.
Actually living in the world.
Regrets. I don't have any regrets because I am where I am right now, and I'm living a life that I love, a life that feels purposeful and satisfying. I wouldn't want to change anything. I like all my story just the way that it is. And anytime you get yourself in a sticky situation, maybe you're experiencing trauma, there's always a way to heal through it.
Yeah.
Bring on whatever comes in the future, whether that's challenges or obstacles. I feel like I've developed a lot of resiliency because of my own failures.
So you enjoy being a worldly person?
I enjoy being a worldly person a lot.
Yeah, it's good. How did you find the courage and the means to get yourself and your daughters out of the situation? I think we've answered that, haven't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I am interested why people might be wondering why you decided to get disfellowshipped and didn't just walk away from it.
Oh, goodness. I was still way too in it mentally. I mean, the brainwashing goes so deep that for me, it was March 28th, 2015, that I left my ex-husband, April 6th, 2015, that my father died by suicide. And by May 30th, 2015, I was disfellowshipped. Yeah. So I knew that I did not want to go back and be with my ex-husband. And I knew that I didn't want what happened to my father to happen to me. But it wasn't until I was kicked out that I really knew that the witnesses were not what I wanted, because they raised me, they educated me, they controlled everything out about my life. I gave my entire life to them. And on one mistake, they were going to disfellowship me. And granted, that wasn't my first mistake. If you want to hear about another mistake I made in a judicial committee that I sat in on when I was 19 years old, just turned 19, I can share that.
Did it involve alcohol?
Nope.
Oh, okay. That's my first judicial committee was alcohol.
Oh, really?
Well, the silly thing, I'll share my story first because it's my thing. But I went to a party
first, and then I'll share my first.
All right, so
just my introduction.
Yeah, my first judicial committee was when I don't know exactly what age I was, but there was a new couple that had just come into the organisation, and they'd just been baptised, and they decided to have a party. And when I went to the party, they took my car keys off me because that's what worldly people do, but not what you do at Jehovah's Witness parties, because you don't need to drink to excess. They said, help yourself to the beer. Now, I think I must have been, I don't know. I think I was underage because I don't think I was old enough. But anyway, I opened the fridge. It was full of beer. And I did. I had 3 cans of beer. And then I was unstoppable, invincible. So I had 4 cans and then 5 cans. And then I threw up. when they said I couldn't drive home because I had my car keys. And then all of a sudden I was drunk and disorderly, and you're allowed to drink as a Jehovah's Witness, but you're not allowed to get drunk. But I was brought up with no real father, so I had no idea how to handle alcohol, really. And, and that I got grilled by 3 elders. I lost all my privileges. They didn't kick me out. And, but the rest was history. Anyway, that's my wee story. You tell us your one. It's going to be good, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, mine is the introduction to my book. So can I go ahead and read that?
Yes.
Is that good for you, interviewer?
Yeah. Hold it. Let's imply some rules here. You need to be more submissive and listening to the interviewer. Okay, I'll shut up.
This is the introduction to the book I'm writing. It's called CultLife, a memoir of growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. I'd love to know your feedback in the comments. So if anyone is still there listening, let me know what you think. So chapter 1, it's October 2007. I sit in the back room of the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses in Charlottesville, Virginia. The room is lined with hundreds of books published by the JWs. The weekly congregation meeting starts out there. The blinds are closed and the meeting in here begins. I just turned 19 and have been married for about 1 month. I'm very worried because based on the information I've been trained on since infancy, some may call this brainwashing, I think I may have committed uncleanliness or fornication before marriage with my now husband.
Ooh.
This fear was the primary motivation for us to get married after dating for only 2 months. We never had intercourse or oral sex, but our makeout sessions were inappropriate, and I knew that. The worry, the shame, the guilt of knowing that nothing can be hidden from the only true God is unbearable. It keeps me up at night. I know that the only pathway to forgiveness with Jehovah is to show my repentance before the elders. So I confess my sins and a judicial committee is formed. Here's some key background information you'll need to know in order to fully understand the situation I have found myself in.
This would be good.
A judicial committee consists of 3 elders anointed by Jehovah's Holy Spirit, which helps them to decide about the discipline needed when someone does something wrong or shows signs of not following the rules. Here's how it works. Jehovah's Witnesses are trained to report to the elders if anyone sees or hears about a sin being made by themselves or others. The elders then investigate the situation carefully to find out exactly what happened. They talk to the person who committed the sin and ask questions. If the wrongdoing is serious and the elders perceive that the person is not sorry for what they did, the elders have a special private meeting called a judicial hearing. There, they talk about the wrongdoing and why it was wrong. After turning to Jehovah's Holy Spirit for guidance, the elders make a decision about what to do next. When someone is found guilty of a gross sin or wrongdoing and doesn't show convincing works of repentance, the elders may decide on a disciplinary action called disfellowshipping. This means that a simple and sterile announcement is made in front of the congregation that sounds like, Jane Doe is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Families cry, everyone looks down, and if the wrongdoer is truly repentant, they will attend this meeting. At the end of the meeting, and until an announcement is made reinstating that individual as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, no one in the congregation is allowed to speak to, look at, or in any way communicate with the wrongdoer because they have shown themselves unrepentant and deserving of Jehovah's righteous discipline. All of this is determined by the person's meeting with the judicial committee. So yeah, tonight is kind of a big deal. I feel extremely uncomfortable. How much will I have to share with them to show my repentance? I wonder if anyone in the regular congregation can hear our conversations. I hope not. I mean, it's already embarrassing enough. Everyone knows you're only brought into the back room during a congregation meeting if it's a big deal. Deep breath, I tell myself. I begin to reason that I am only reaping the consequences of my own actions, and I need to humble myself to receive the forgiveness I need for my sins. The elders open the meeting friendly and thankful that I am following the process Jehovah has put in place for his people. I tell them that I may have crossed a line, but I am not sure. They read me the faithful and discreet slave's definition of uncleanliness and fornication from Jehovah's Witness publications. The faithful and discreet slave represent God's direct communication to his earthly organization, also known as a group of 7 dudes that run the JW cult.
Yeah.
After the definition is read, they begin to ask me a series of questions. My face starts to feel warm with shame.
I don't know if I want to hear these because I have flashbacks myself. But anyway,
we're almost done, but this is the good part. Okay.
Oh, God.
The room feels stuffy and hot. I do not want to be here right now. They ask, how many times did it happen?
Oh, my God.
Did it happen?
Yeah.
Did anyone else see you? Did you touch each other over the top of your clothes or underneath? Did you climax? Did he ejaculate? How many times? I'm not really sure if I climaxed, and I feel dumb
You
not
wouldn't know what it
knowing.
was.
I hope I didn't just lie. I hope I don't have to repent for that sin too. My sins seem like a never-ending hamster wheel sometimes. With every question, I feel myself sinking deeper into the quicksand of shame. I wish they would stop. Don't they know enough already? The questions go on and on. I've been in this meeting for over an hour now. Some of the questions seem repetitive, like they're prying for more details. They're asking the same questions, but in different ways. It feels like I'm being interrogated.
Yeah.
This feels wrong. I feel violated. There is a fire that starts to burn within me, a fire that could destroy this entire building and everyone inside of it. Without thinking, I say, look, I have answered all of your questions. I'm the one who came to you and confessed something really embarrassing. You have enough information to decide whether I'm repentant or not. I'm not answering any more questions. And I walk out. Shoot, the people in the back of the congregation probably heard me. I feel simultaneously livid and ashamed. My inner voice reminds me, good Christian women don't speak to God's chosen representatives that way. I hope I don't get disfellowshipped. I don't want to be kicked out, and I don't want everyone to know what I've done.
Wow. Hold it. Crowd goes wild.
Jesus.
Jesus.
The inspiration to write this book.
Wow, you did that. Good girl. Oh, no. I remember. I think, some of the questions they ask, or they always ask the same questions, and it's them finding out whether it was premeditated, whether you planned it. And you said something in there about, did anyone see you? Yeah, it was out in the car park, but they want to know whether Jehovah's name is going to be bring reproach against Jehovah's name, and if it was all hidden, hush, hush, no one heard about it. Now, in the Judicial Committee, they take notes, and in Australia, they've had 1,100 cases of actually child molestation. And that from 1963, and they basically have notes of all these dirty old men or people fiddling with children, and they've kept it all suppressed. And then there was a high court junction where the Jehovah's Witnesses had to hand over all their documents. And now there was an opportunity for people, there was an inquest done, and people could actually go there and use those documents and do the organisation, or go back and all the kiddie fiddlers, I'll call them. But now, because that's happened, when they have these judicial committees, they're not allowed to take notes, and they're not allowed to write things down. And then it's all in their heads. So it's just got kind of worse in a way. But that was how long ago? 8 years ago. No, that was more. That was
when I had just turned 19. So that was in 2007.
Yeah. Yeah. And being a guy and trying to control your sexual urges at an age where you weren't allowed to, weren't allowed to masturbate or anything like that. You weren't allowed to, I didn't have a father to tell me anything. So I think I remember seeing a survey once. They reckon that 95% of men masturbate and the other 5 of them are liars. But I mean,
that's good for humans. Like,
yeah,
it's a good for humans. To tell us that we can't do that is just stupid.
Well, it's crazy. And then I remember talking to one of the elders who was studying with me when I was getting back in again, because they study with you again to help get you back up to speed. And he shared some intimate stuff with me that I never knew was okay. And it's just now I don't really have a filter about anything, because you were trying to find yourself, and it was just so hard. I just think that story's any Jehovah's Witness listening to that story would not go, ooh, they would just go, oh yeah, that's right. And this is the cookie cutter that we lived in as young Jehovah's Witnesses. 2.5 years of age, I was on that rail line heading for that destination, and I couldn't get off it. I remember saying to my mother, I never had a choice. And she said, you had a choice. You got baptized and dedicated your life to Jehovah. And I go, no, I had no choice because I couldn't get off that rail line. You were bribing me with my family, my friends that I grew up with. I weren't working with anyone else. I owned a business at the time. And that business my business partner was a Jehovah's Witness. We were painters and decorators. We had two pioneers, one regular special pioneer it was actually, working with us, and another guy that was associated with the witnesses but wasn't actually a witness. So my whole world was Jehovah's Witnesses. And I had nothing outside of it. No worldly people, because they were going to be destroyed. Don't want to do with worldly people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the conclusion that I've come to, and the reason why I classify one of the reasons why I classify Jehovah's Witnesses as a cult, is because when you're baptized at whatever age that is, whether it's 8 or 15, I was 16, you make a decision and then you are never, ever, ever allowed to leave. There is never a pathway where you can get out of the decision that you made with an underdeveloped brain that doesn't include losing your entire friends and community. Like it's just, it's not okay.
Yeah, I don't think, like I remember at the age of 23, I imagine a desk full of clutter. When you're starting over, it's like just getting everything and just wiping it off the desk and starting over. I had to find a new place to live. I had to find a job. My business, I lost my business. I just lost everything. So I had to start over again. And I remember at the age of 40, I went through one hell of a divorce. And a day after my wife at the time said wanted a divorce, I had a burst appendix. And I lay in hospital for 2 weeks thinking, I just managed to get my life back in order. I got some property. I had a successful business. And then at the age of 40, here I am starting over again. And I said, I'm a king at this. This is not going to be a problem because I've done it at the age of 23. I'll just reinvent myself. And now I actually quite like the idea. If I ever get myself in the shit in my life now, it's actually quite exciting in some ways of building a new life. I mean, I meet people who tell me they've been married since the age of 18 and they say that they're doing their 30th or their 40th wedding anniversary. And I often say, were you married to the same woman? Well, I've been married for 30 years. And I go, to the same woman. But I think I feel sorry for them because they haven't lived life. They haven't had a variety. How can you find somebody at the age of 18? Because when you get to 30 and you get to 40, you want different things out of life. And so does your partner. So a lot of these people are in relationships trapped.
Yeah. I think it's possible for people to grow together. I think long relationships like that don't necessarily mean that you're sacrificing. There are some people who find happiness in it. But when it comes to the Jehovah's Witnesses, there's so many parts of your authentic self that you are forced to deny. So it would be impossible to truly connect with another person for 30 years when you're not even allowed to be truly connected with yourself.
Yeah, we've got a few people in the chat room, which is really nice. So welcome to you. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask two ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, that's our common interest. I met Shannon on TikTok and I put a comment in there and said, you're a brave person. I love that you're sharing your story. And then we've decided that we'd get together and have a bit of a yarn about our upbringings. So Shannon's been in it since the age of 5. I was in it since the age of 22. Shannon just turned 35. Congratulations. And I'm 53 years of age. And I've been out of it for 30 years. But every day, this religion comes knocking on my door some which way or form and reminds me that I was brought up in a religious cult. Hence why I fight these Ponzi schemes, because they're very similar. But one of the questions, stress relief is masturbation. You must love yourself first. Like, yeah. All right, let's go into question number 8. If we haven't already answered it, we can just pass by it. What was the reaction from the congregation and your JW friends when you left?
I wouldn't know what their reaction is because no one called, texted, or talked to me. What I think their reaction I think it was tragic. I think that a lot of people who knew me knew that I was in a very abusive situation. Everyone knew that my father died by suicide. So to find out that I was disfellowshipped, I feel like the conversation in the preaching car groups probably sounded like, that's just so sad. That's so tragic. I know, but she can't just blame the Jehovah's Witnesses for her dad's death. I just hope she comes back to Jehovah. She was such a good person. Let's just
Oh
keep
my God.
praying that
Give me
she'll
a
come
bucket.
back. I've never been able to defend myself. I've never used my voice within the Jehovah's Witness organization after I left because I am literally kicked out and none of my friends or family member have talked to me since
Wow.
then.
Hey, can I ask you?
That's not true. My grandmother did tell me that I should come back to Jehovah because how will my father feel when he shows up in paradise and I'm not there?
I tell you what. And do you mind if I ask your father's first name?
John.
John. My stepfather's first name was actually Robert. So I just wanted. Hey, what I wouldn't mind doing because I'm just going to have a bit of a commercial break here, and there's one of your TikToks I'm going to play here. If that's all right.
Okay.
I want to play you crying because you did a good job of this.
Gosh, not that one.
It's going to be played because this one here I felt for you, and this is what. Oh, hold up! I got the right screen. Here we go. Let's listen to Shannon crying. See if you can connect with us.
You want to know what it really looks like?
It's a bit jumpy. We'll get there though.
Being an XJW, it looks like your uncle being in the hospital and you being told, well, we love you, but we love Jehovah too.
Ugh.
And it's probably not best that we talk.
Ugh.
So that translates in my brain as I will probably never see my aunt, my uncle, or my grandma before they die.
Oh, you make me tear on my eye now. It's horrible.
I feel like I already knew that, but somehow just having it said made it more real, and it just feels sad. It makes me think of the XGW organization that says they make these t-shirts that say love never shuns. Just because we believe differently doesn't mean we have to be divided in that way.
Oh, you're a very strong lady. Thank you for letting me share that. What I think you let me. It's incomprehensible. Like I say to people, my mother is, and this sounds terrible if you haven't been brought up in a Jehovah's Witness, but my mother is as good as dead. Not because I'm full of rage or hatred, but they call it reverse grieving. And that's where any communication that comes from my mother is a bonus. But if I view her as still alive, not wanting to talk to me, it's just horrible, you know?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about my grandmother and my aunt and my uncle. They have so many amazing qualities. My uncle is a really amazing artist. My aunt is an incredible writer and so creative. And my grandmother holds so many stories that once she passes, I will never have access to. But it is as if they are dead now because me and my children are not allowed to have access to them because we are not Jehovah's Witnesses. We are not allowed to hold different opinions than them and still maintain a relationship.
Yeah. I want to play another one. Oh, this cat witnessing. Did you film that?
So that was when I was in Taos, New Mexico, and I drove through there. My car door is right there. So I saw them when I first came around this curve, and my whole body lit with fire.
I know.
How dare them?
Yeah.
Well, this is what lit me on fire is that cart that they're holding up, it's in Spanish, but it's talking about mental health.
Let's watch it, eh?
To say about mental health.
All right,
Like that. So I went inside, I did my shopping, and when I came out, I saw them again, and this time I was a little calmer. And so I rolled down my window and I said, hey, ¿puedo sacar un foto? Can I take a picture? And they were like, oh, yes. And they were getting ready for the picture and I snapped it. And then I said, I think it's really interesting that you're out here trying to talk to people about their mental health, because me and my father used to be Jehovah's Witnesses until he died by suicide, and your organization damages people's mental health.
Oh, boom.
And the smiles on their faces quickly faded, but this is the live shot that I captured there.
Oh, we're going to watch it. So let's have a look. It's quite good to be able to do this. Hopefully it comes up without any problems. I like the music. Very dramatic. It's got a, I think I get the idea of that one. Good on you. What else can we? What's another one that you
play? This one that says, if you're going through a rough spot in life.
If you're going through a rough spot in life. Okay.
47.
Yeah, and that's a good thing actually. I presume this is positive, and there is always a positive spin on all this stuff, isn't there? And we should focus on that too. You know, there is life after the cult. That's why you call cult life, isn't it?
Through a rough spot in life. Here are 3 things about how I got through the hardest time period of my life.
Boom. Nope. Jamming. Move. It's coming back. There it is.
Which included, if you're going through a rough spot in life, here are 3 things about how I got through the hardest time period of my life, which included leaving an abusive marriage of 8 years, going through a divorce, transitioning from being a stay-at-home mom to a single mom with 2 young children, losing my father to suicide, being disfellowshipped as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, which translates to immediately losing every friend and family member from the only community I was allowed to have. I felt utterly alone. For the first time, I understood why people use heavy drugs. I concluded that they must want to escape the same weight of emotional pain that I was experiencing, a pain that's not always visible on the outside. So here are 3 things that saved me. This song, Gotta Keep Your Head Up by Andy Grammer, driving the Blue Ridge Parkway, and writing. This is how I process these mountains and valleys, allowing nature to heal those inner wounds and giving myself enough space to process all the things I was experiencing. We can't change the circumstances when our tragedy strikes, but we can choose to allow music and nature and writing to heal us along the journey. It kind of cut off there, but
sorry about that. It's I'm streaming on 5 platforms, and we're wanting to watch the internet at the same time and talk to the lovely Shannon as well.
Going through a rough spot.
Oh, and now you can shut up. No, really good. Now, I just somebody in the chat room asked for your TikTok address, so you're going to have a few more followers. Please do search for the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger and make sure you follow me as well, because I get jealous. She's doing really well with that. So no, I really think that's cool. And you've done really well on that. And you're gonna, we might be able to do something more regular. I think we could come up with a topic and discuss it and bash it out, because I think more people need to speak about it. You know, and help people, because you can use a lot of the stuff that we're using in day-to-day business, even if you weren't an ex-Jehovah's Witness. I'd like to think that we were a part of an extremist organization. You know. All right, you another question? How are you doing? You still with me?
I'm still with you.
Look at my.
I'll be wrapping up shortly. I'm thinking like 10 more minutes, and then I should probably do the things I need.
10 more minutes has always turned into half an hour when I've said that. So let's do some quick fire questions and see if we've covered what ChatGPT recommended we ask. How did you handle being shunned by the community you had known for so long? Have you answered that? How did you handle it? Drugs, alcohol, sex, drugs, and rock and roll?
You have to read my book.
When is the book? When is your book going to be published?
So the first book of the first 26 years is going to end with me getting disfellowshipped. And now I'm a single mom. I'm in the world. My dad's died by suicide. I'm going through a divorce. And then my second book is called This Ends Now. And my second book is going to be about all of the cycles and crud and crap and stupid things that I did and things that happened to me because I was a very young, naive, uneducated person thrown into this world.
Yep.
So I mean, the way I coped with it, I wouldn't say immediately turn to drugs and alcohol, but a little weed every now and then doesn't hurt
I've
nobody,
never
in
done
my
it.
opinion.
I've never tried it. I'm too scared.
Really?
Oh, my sister had an addictive personality and she was a heroin addict in her last days. So I figured if I ever start this stuff, I'd probably never stop.
Well, maybe just start it when you're like 70. So then you'll only waste like the last 10 years of your life. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do it if you don't want to, you know, whatever. But how did I cope with being shunned? I felt really alone for a really long time. I got a counselor immediately. I wrote, I listened to music. Sometimes I had too much to drink.
Brilliant.
Sometimes I woke up with regrets. Sometimes I didn't. I mean, you deal with it the best way you can.
Okay, I've got a guy that's just come into the chat room. He's actually my other co-host normally. You're a lot more attractive than he is. No offense, Rob, but he's called Crypto Sage of Critical Thinking, and he's asked us a question. So we might not need the rest of our 20 questions. What advice would she, Shannon is her name, have for someone in the position she was in?
At which part? Where I'm already disfellowshipped or where I'm still in?
No, when you're getting drunk after you've been disfellowshipped. What advice? I think
drink water and sleep.
yeah. Have a glass of water before you go to bed after getting drunk. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, don't eat and drink. I have nicer hair. Rob's got no hair. You've got no competition. Rob said he's got nicer hair than you and he's got no hair. All right. Yeah. We could probably both have an answer to that question. It is like people say to me, how do I stop people getting involved in these crypto opportunities? Because people message me and say, I've got a friend that believes it's not a scam. And what can you help me? And there's nothing you can do for some people. Some people, you can't help them. You've got to have a reason to get, you had a dramatic effect. You were in an abusive relationship for 8 years and you still didn't leave it. The elders keep patching up your relationship. And you had to go to the extremes of having relationships with somebody else. So you were forced, you had put a wedge and kicked you out. So some people don't want out or don't know how to get out or don't have faith they can get out. So how do you convince someone to get out of a religious cult when you know?
I mean, I don't think you do. I don't think that's our responsibility in life. I don't think that there's anyone that could have ever convinced me. I think the only thing that we can do is, like, for example, when I see witnesses cart witnessing, I will always speak to them and I will speak to them with all of the kindness and all of the skill and all of the tact that Jehovah's Witnesses had inundated me with.
Yeah.
But I will ask them things like, I used to be a witness until I realized that it wasn't good for my mental health. I used to be a witness until I learned about all the children and how they're being treated. So I will just bring up little pieces of information. And one that I brought up recently was, I've just found that I really enjoy thinking critically and not having to only think the way that Jehovah's Witnesses say I have to. And the lady responded by saying, oh, well, I have had doubts and I have thought about them critically and I feel very good with where I'm at. And I said, well, good. And if you ever have any doubts in the future, then I encourage you to think critically. I want to come across as a very sound, educated, grounded person who has thought critically about the religion and come to a conclusion that was different than theirs in hopes that it will spark curiosity that will empower them to look outside of the witnesses for more information.
Yeah. Start asking questions, It's kind of like being more inquisitive. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Hey, I chucked the next 5 questions into the chat room. It's crashed now. It must have overloaded it. And I wanted people to pick the next question, the best question out of the 5 that we should ask you. However, my chat room's crashed now. So that was not much fun. Read and reply to messages on multiple platforms. Okay, so anyone want to ask a question around that? I don't know. Do you sick of questions? Have you got any good stories that you'd like to tell us about? What was the most fun thing you did as Jehovah's Witness when you went out as a teenager? Was it going to the movies? Is it
It was wearing my bikini.
Oh, that was a good story. I enjoyed that. Any guy likes a bikini story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just like a 16, 17-year-old teenage girl. I had nice curvy little body.
Yeah.
And me and my friends were hanging out. We were probably went preaching that morning and we were looking for something to do. We had just got our licenses and I said, "Oh, well, my homeschooling group is meeting at the lake today. We should go." So we put on the bathing suits. They weren't bikinis. That's not even a fair description. It was a two-piece bathing suit that our parents had bought us that we wore on family vacation. And we went to the lake and we had a great time and we left and we drove home. And when we got into my friend's house, her father, who was a raging alcoholic and a elder, because those two go really well together, he pulled me into his bedroom and he just had a very clear conversation with me about why it was not appropriate for us to be wearing two-piece bathing suits. What type of example did that set for other people in the congregation? How did I think that other men could view me? What type of thoughts could be in other men's heads about
You don't want to know.
my body?
Sorry.
And yeah. And he shared the scripture about, I can't remember exactly what it says, but basically it's better to tie a stone around your neck and throw yourself into the sea than to stumble a brother. So I just kind of felt really shitty. And I also felt really gross that all of those brothers, those men that were bringing their children to the same lake to go have family fun together were thinking of me in a sexual way. That was disgusting.
No. I remember I was asked to be the best man at a mate's, well, I've asked to be the best man at a mate's wedding, and I declined because his partner was, she was very chesty and she was always hanging out of her clothes, and I didn't think she dressed appropriate. And so I didn't want to be his best man at his wedding because I didn't think she was, in good standing. So that's how high and mighty I was at the time. And then ironically, he asked my other best man to be his best man instead. And then the other guy got married and he asked me to be his best man as well. And I come up with some other reason why I couldn't because I was higher than mighty. So both of them asked me first and then finished up being each other's best man. I've got an horrific story about so that I have actually told in a story once, but I grew up with 5 young fellas, and we used to call ourselves the Rat Pack. And we used to drive around in our cars, and we used to always get told off by the elders because we're speeding, or they used to call us the Rat Pack, and we were hoons, and we weren't really that bad. But one of my mates, I don't know how to explain this, but one of my mates was, when I got kicked out of the organization, one of my mates married this lady I was just told you about, and he was delivering pamphlets one day in the country, and his wife and his child was in the car, and the truck was coming down the road, and the truck started veering over the other side of the road, and actually, he tried to get out of the way and he couldn't. So his wife literally saw him get ran over by a truck right in front of us and died. So I grew up with that guy. So they had a memorial service because the witnesses don't do funerals as most people know about it. And there was about 250 people there. So because it was a public event and I had the balls to, and he was a good mate, I grew up with him, and also I was asked to be his best man, I bowled along and went to it. Now, a third of the people in there weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, but they knew that I were, and they were coming up to me and talking to me. And I wanted to pay respects to my mate. And then my old boss that I worked for 7 years come up to me and told me that I should leave. And I'm going, why? And he said, because people think that you're not disfellowship, and they're coming up and talking to you. And, you're bringing reproach, against the organization. And, I said, well, put a sign around my neck and say I'm disfellowshipped if you want, but I'm not leaving. And I was with my partner at the time. She had nothing to do with the religion. Anyway, then his son come up to me and he whispered in my ear. He wouldn't talk to me, and he's going, "Come back to the church. Come back to the church." And people would walk past me and they'd run, they'd rub their hand down my back to say g'day, but wouldn't say anything. It was just the most weirdest thing that I've ever sort of had experience. And I'm looking around at everybody, and I knew them all. Some people were just talking to me like I was good old Dan. And then my boss come back up to me again, my old boss, and he had another go at me. And I just leaned over and said, "Look, you've lost it." And I remember I said to my partner, look, I've done my respects to my mate. I'm just going to leave. And as I'm leaving, the mother of Grant, who died, come up to me and she said, look, Danny, I know how hard it would have been you to come to this funeral today. And she said, Grant would have been really proud of you doing this, and gave me a big hug in front of everybody. So it was like, stuff you guys. And then I remember just walking out, and as I walked out the door, I just burst into uncontrollable tears. And I still remember that feeling. And I just thought, what the hell just happened? I went to pay my respects to someone who died and basically got ridiculed by everyone. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people there. And then the person that should have really mattered come up and thanked me for coming, the mother. Since then, she's passed away. Since then, his brother passed away. And all that's left is the staunch elder who was the father. He's lost his whole family. He remarried after 2 months, found himself an imported wife, and got started over again. And he's still a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if that made sense, but you just sit there in disbelief, and it's just horrible sometimes.
No, I definitely agree. And I mean, to be fair, Jehovah's Witnesses are super judgmental, but I always try to show compassion to them because I was them. So in that situation, I did precisely that to my own brother. We had someone that we grew up with as a Jehovah's Witness who ended up overdosing, and they threw the whole Jehovah's Witness funeral. My brother came, my brother was disfellowshipped, and I hugged my brother, and I did talk to him, but all I was saying to him was, please come back, please come back, please come back, because I was so brainwashed, I didn't know anything else.
Yeah. Hey, we've got a couple of questions and then we'll sort of round it up. Rob wants to know where you're from because he wasn't here at the start.
I am from Central Virginia.
Yeah, not Christchurch.
So that's where I was.
Yep, never been outside your state.
I've been outside my state.
Oh, yeah.
I've been across the United States. I've been to New Mexico and Montana and Colorado, New York to Florida, and all the different places in between. I've just never been out of the country more than Canada, and hopefully that will be changing soon.
Yeah, no, cool. What do you miss about leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses? Which is actually quite an interesting question, really.
I miss the brotherhood. I miss knowing that I could show up at anywhere in the world and knock on the door and tell them that I was a pioneer, and I would, or even not a pioneer, just a publisher, and I would be welcomed into their homes, and I would be looked after. And I always liked the feeling of that.
I was really popular enough to say when I had my own apartment, well, it was a house, I used to ring up my friends and go, hey, I'm doing a video night. Anyone want to come? And we'd get 30, 35, 40 people turning up with pizza takeaways, and we'd all sit there and watch have a movie night. And I do miss that sort of stuff, And I was quite popular, so it was quite interesting that when I was always a bit of a rebel because I was we used to have what we call the elders' sons who would get made ministerial servants. So there'd be, people at the top were those circuit overseers, elders, and then ministerial servants, and then the peasant kids, which I was a peasant kid where I tried to be a ministerial servant, but unless you had a father that was already an elder, it was very hard for a single parent person to get to anything in an elevated position. But because of that, I was sort of a bit of a rebel. But I do it was nice to be able to do that. The brotherhood, like you said, you nailed it the first time, really. Last question here. What can you do now that you couldn't do when you're in? That's pretty obvious. Anything you bloody well friggin' want and not feel guilty. Guilt.
You can masturbate.
Yes, that finger. Thanks for sharing, Shannon. It's all right. We'll get kicked off YouTube. Yeah.
That was the first thing that came to my mind because of what we talked about. But we made a TikTok about all of the things that we do. So in my family, we celebrate birthdays.
Boom.
We celebrate Halloween. We celebrate Christmas, all of the holidays. My daughter is really into theater. So she's allowed to take extracurricular theater classes. She also loves gymnastics, both of them. So they're both enrolled in gymnastics. My youngest daughter just really wanted to be a cheerleader. So she tried that out this year.
Oh, those short dresses, they're no good. All this stuff you weren't allowed to do, or,
And not to mention all the bad association of like worldly friends that she has access to, where she doesn't get to just think one thing all the time. She's exposed to a lot of different people. And I think the biggest thing that I'm allowed to do besides reading whatever books I want to read is just, I have the ability to think critically. And I was not allowed to do that as a witness. So that's something that I really appreciate.
Yeah. I think when I was a kid, they had religious training. So we used to I used to sit out in the quad rock, well, sit out in the garden, and it was like a horseshoe, the classrooms. Everybody could see Danny sitting out there by himself when the religious training was on, because I might have been taught something I didn't know, that would have tarnished me or changed my beliefs. But probably the most horrific thing I remember, when I was 5 years of age, they used to start the beginning assembly. They used to play the national anthem and used to stand, and I think people used to salute the flag. But I didn't know how to handle that, because I knew that we weren't meant to worship false idols or worship the flag. And by standing up and while they were playing the national anthem, it was just what I got taught you weren't allowed to do. So I remember at lunchtime running all the way home, crying my eyes out, saying to Mum, I saluted the flag and they made us sing the national anthem. And I was singing the words without the words coming out, thinking I'll be okay. Now, a 5-year-old is going through that. And my mum said that I had a choice at the age of 16 whether to get baptized into the religion. I was already out of that cookie mold. I had no choice. Flashbacks?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm just really thankful that my children do not have to go through that. They are very educated. They're critical thinkers. I never worry about them succumbing to a religion like Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're far too educated to ever fall victim to that, period.
Question, I mean, critical thinking, if you can teach your kids to be critical thinkers. I was did a video before this one. I was practicing this new software I'm using at the moment, and there was a YouTube video I narrated over, and it was about this. You put $1,000 in, and within 2 months, that $1,000 turns into $3,000, and then you compound it, and at the end of the year, you're going to get over $200,000 return for your investment. But these people who are putting their $1,000 in haven't stopped to question where the money comes from, and this critical thinking stuff is like, okay, like, let's just think about it, the paradise earth that we got promised. All the wicked people in the world are going to be destroyed. Everyone that's going to inherit the earth is going to live forever on a paradise earth. I mean, does that sound, I mean, is that...
If that's the only thing that you're taught, it makes sense that we believe it, and that's what they want to do. They want to take these minds as young as possible, and they want to make sure no other information, no higher education, no books, no critical thinking, can't hang out with different people. And you're taught this like immense fear that if you talk to an apostate, or you read their signs when you're going into the district convention, or you see something on social media or YouTube, they could plant a seed of doubt that could literally destroy your eternal life. So you're walking around in fear of ever being exposed to the truth about the truth.
I forgot something you told me. You're going to be standing outside one of the conventions holding up one of those signs looking like you've got the issue, aren't you?
Well, I guess we've announced that to the world, Danny.
Sorry. they'll be hiding. Shannon's going to be holding her plaque up. What's it going to say on it? I masturbate.
I haven't decided yet. I'm mastering now.
Sorry. Yeah. Don't knock it until you try it. Yeah.
No, I don't know what it's going to say yet. I know that I have I'm very particular about who I bring with me, because what I would love to see is all of the disfellowshipped Jehovah's Witnesses from around this area. I would love to see them lined up at the entrance.
Yeah.
And I don't know what our shirts.
A coat of arms.
Maybe it could even be something like "We Still Exist," but I want my grandmother, I want my aunt, I want my uncle, I want my friends, I want the women who were there when I gave birth to my children. I want the people that I spent decades developing relationships and friendships with. All I want for them is to see my face. And when they go and they sit in that assembly hall, they will remember my story, and they will see my face, and I would love to be lined with other local XJWs who just showing our faces tell the whole story.
Your family doesn't know your children, eh? Because your kids are 10, aren't they? So they've known them from 2, and that's it. That's just
they've seen them a few times throughout the years, but they don't have any relationships with them.
Wow. Hey, so if we get together again, which I'd love to, and we had a topic, we'd have to think about it. But what do you think we could help other ex-J dubs with? Like, is there a way to speed up this grieving process that the grieving that we have as you leave? Some practical things, like when do you get to the stage where you can be your true, authentic self and have pride about who you are, like, because otherwise you live a life of shame. And I think that's what I was worried about. I have no filter now, and I say whatever I want. And I think that's made me the person I am. And you look like you're going places, young lady.
Well, I would love to talk about what healing religious trauma has looked like for me. I'm not a medical professional by any means, but I have found some things that have been really helpful for me. So maybe we can hop on and talk about that next time.
Yeah, I think so. We've got last comments here. We've got Richard, my truck driver mate, who listens to us like it's a religion. Thank you. What about God is different from not having the benefits of brotherhood? What about God is different? Not sure if that reads right. Is he saying you can have brotherhood without God? I don't think so. You can't see the chat, can you?
I do want to mention that I will hop on the chat after this, and I'll make sure I leave like my contact so you can find me on TikTok or Instagram. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of the comments. If we missed any, just know that they're very appreciated.
Yeah, and if you go into the live chat replay, you can see all the questions along the way. And also remember, we're streaming on Twitch and Kick and something else. Facebook. I've got, and it was all to do with the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger, which is one of the reasons I bust these Ponzi schemes, because they remind me of these religious cult. Okay, well, thank you very much. I think that's probably it. I'll probably let you disappear, and we'll correspond via TikTok or, and what would you like people to do with your TikTok? Like all your videos, put a comment, hit the thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean, comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you like the content.
Yeah.
I've had someone, give me some feedback. I shared certain things about why Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate birthdays, but I forgot some things. The person who decided to let me know that is currently a Jehovah's Witness who shouldn't be looking at my stuff anyway.
I know. Often I get into these discussions with those people.
I know. I'm like, you're not even supposed to be here. You're going to end up getting kicked out and you're going to only be able to hang out with us if you keep up this behavior of critically.
I think I told you in our last chat, I haven't told these people, I said every time somebody says to me, have you thought about coming back? I go, well, I have, but then I think I'd rather shoot myself in the face than come back to the Jehovah's Witness organization. And they go, ooh, and I go, ooh. Yeah, but no way. And it's not like we're angry or bitter about it. We've just learned better. We've critical thought. I got kicked out of it. Okay. I got kicked out of it again. Okay. But now I think I feel sorry for the people that are caught into it, who have to, it's like a pillar in their life where if they take that away, they're going to collapse. Well, they took the pillar away from my life that I thought I needed, and I'm stronger than ever. And so are you. And you're awesome. And I thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story, because it helps others. So I'm going to love you and leave you. And we hopefully will interact on social media, and we'll see you next time. Okay, Shannon?
Sounds good. Thanks, Danny.
Bye-bye. Bye. Absolutely awesome. Thoroughly enjoyed doing that. And hopefully Shannon and I will be able to get together in the not too distant future and come up with some topics that may be of interest to people. So it's a little bit different, this one. It was literally about my life and Shannon's life as escaping the religious cult of the Jehovah's Witness organization. Both of us have experienced people in our immediate family dying by suicide. And we believe that it's the detrimental effects and the pressures that organization has put on those people have took their life. I got interviewed by Radio New Zealand, and they asked me for some statistics on how many people I believe have actually died by suicide. And I said, you'll never find the answer to that question. And she goes, why is that? And I said, because once they're kicked out of the organization, they take their own lives, the organization just washes their hands of those people. So the true statistics are never really known. But in the top of my head, I can probably think of 20 instances where people I knew have actually died by suicide, and it's just horrific. So it was a big part of my life. I've got a couple of videos on my YouTube channel about my experience as an ex-Jehovah's Witness. There was my last video was escaping the Jehovah's Witness cult, and that was about when they had the shooting in Hamburg, and some guy went in and shot 7 people in a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. He shot at a lady in the car park and she escaped. He shot 10 times into the car and escaped, and then went in there and literally murdered 7 people, and then he died by suicide himself. And I did a video about that. Now, it worked out that the rumors are that the guy was actually discommunicated or disfellowshipped. I don't know if he's a baptized publisher, but he was kicked out of the organization. The lady in the car park seemed to be his ex-girlfriend, ex-partner, ex-somebody. And he obviously might have shot at her out of anger. I'm just doing a bit of an assumption what could have happened. And then he went in and took it out on the religious, the people in the religion. I'm not saying that's condoning anything he's done, of course, but what I am getting at is the guy probably didn't know how to process what was going on in his life. And a lot of people out there don't know how to process stuff. I'm quite strong. I can speak out about my upbringing as a Jehovah's Witness. I don't care anymore. My mother, who's now 80 years of age, doesn't want anything to do with me. In fact, she even went to the courts to defend herself because she was frightened that she didn't have the freedom to exercise her religion. And I was trying to stop it because I put a video on YouTube telling people about my life as a Jehovah's Witness and an ex-Jehovah's Witness. It's a shocking thing, these cults. And this is why I'm doing this stuff about the Ponzi schemes, because people believe what they get said. Become a critical thinker. Rob, he's in here. He's crypto sage of critical thinking. Question people. Don't just believe what you hear. Question them. Get into it. Hey, I'm Danny DeHick, and you've been listening to the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger. And I'm going to try and figure out how to switch all my lives off. And this was my first big live where I've actually been broadcasting on 5 different platforms at the same time, and I'm using a bit of software called Restream, and now I've got to figure out how to turn it off so that you guys enjoy it. So the only way I can think about doing this successfully is by doing my normal sign off, and I'm going to say you've been listening to Danny DeHick, aka the Crypto Ponzi Scheme Avenger. I had a whole page in the New York Times about my quest to name and shame anyone running a Ponzi scheme or promoting a Ponzi scheme or a scam. And now I'm talking about my life as an ex-Jehovah's Witness and the detrimental effects it had on myself and the people that were involved in my family. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next live. See yous. He's showing like this, and it will look like I finished it properly. Did it finish?